there's a lot of ways you can practice this game and get better that doesn't cost much money. And so we've got great technology today with TrackMan and all that, but boy, some of these drills that I'll show you don't hardly cost anything. They're time tested though, and they work. And over 30 years of instruction, these are my favorite drills. This first one is simply a cardboard box and a towel. And it does many things. All I think a player needs to do is set up correctly, swing on the correct path, and have a square club face. And if you can do those things, you're going to be a really good player. And so this addresses club path. And it's one of the best ways I've found to do it. It really works. It is a great drill with driver, but it's equally as good with your wedges and your irons. So I like to aim it at a flag, and I like to have the ball teed up, and where I have hardly any room, maybe an 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch from the toe of this club to the box. And then I like to put a towel here on the inside far enough away that the shaft won't hit it on the way down. And that just keeps me from cheating and swinging in here because I'm scared of the box. Frankly, once you get pretty good at this drill, you probably don't need the towel. You can just hit off the box. When I was really practicing and learning to play in the late 80s, early 90s, I probably hit 200 drivers a day off of this box, probably. And I'm not kidding. And honestly, back then, I was really one of the best drivers of the golf ball around, even though it's probably my weakest part as I've gotten older. But boy, back then, I was a great driver of the ball, and I really attribute it to this box. I hit it, there was not anybody that could hit it straighter. And I had 105-mile-an-hour clubhead speed back then, which was pretty competitive with the equipment back then. And so I hit it pretty far and I hit it pretty straight. And so that's what I recommend, a box. You'll be able to see if that club path can swing between that towel and that box. It'll make you have center contact every time. For players that tend to hit a lot of shots on the heel, this box is great. Players that tend to shank it with their wedges, this box is great. If you want to learn how not to shank it, as long as you hit the ball and not the box, you won't hit shanks. So drill number one, in my opinion, for anybody that's serious about improving is to put a box in your trunk and use it every time you practice. It'll help you with alignment. You'll be able to see, you know, is my feet, hips, and shoulders square? I'm not too much this way, I'm not too much that way. And it gives you that parallel feeling to where you can see, you know, where my target really is. It looks a lot more right for most people than it actually is. And so this box will cure a lot of ills, and I highly recommend it. But that's great practice. Another drill, probably my drill number 2, is to have an inclined alignment stick that is parallel to my target line, and the ball is under the tip end. So it doesn't matter how much angle you have. If it's lower, the ball would be under the tip, and if it's higher, the ball should be under the tip. You get the same result. But for 80% of the people that I work with, that on the way down the club works this way, well, you can obviously see that I'm going to collide with that alignment stick. I have a pool noodle over it just to show it on camera a little better. I usually don't use the pool noodle. I just leave the alignment stick there. But the pool noodle's not a bad idea. Especially for somebody that really has a propensity to hit the stick a lot, it'll protect your club. You have to be careful. I'm careful with this with people that are really bad steeping over, because with driver, if you hit the shaft on the alignment stick, you'll break it. Most people don't hit the shaft though, they just hit the head and it's not an issue. This works with irons, wedges, driver. It's a great drill to work on swing path, and you need to make sure that your feet, hips, and shoulders are parallel to this, and that gives you where this club can swing on the correct path on the way down. If I get misaligned, it's going to be almost impossible to miss that even with a good swing. And if I can cheat and aim this way, and it's pretty easy to swing under it, but I'll obviously hit it a lot too far to the right. So just make sure you aim correctly and we can swing from there. And so as you'll see, I don't come anywhere close to hitting that stick, and it's a great way to work on all your clubs. And I recommend this drill has helped more of my students. The box drill and this drill, these two drills alone probably help 95% of the people that I work with. So if you don't do anything but the box and this tilted stick, it'll help you a lot. Another drill with just simple alignment sticks, or you can use golf clubs. When I was learning to play 40 years ago, 50 years ago, we weren't smart enough to have alignment sticks. We used our golf clubs to lay down, and I usually broke one or two every year because I ended up getting too close to them and hitting them. So we've gotten smarter, this is just a simple drill to work on setup, and it's time aged. Almost everybody does it. If you go to a tour event, you go to the driving range, especially on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, during the practice rounds, you go to the driving range and you watch tour players practice, they almost always create a station like this so they can get the ball exactly where they want it in their stance, both distance away and between their feet. I can't express to you that anytime that you see a great player hit a really bad shot, they probably got set up incorrectly rather than they made a bad swing. Their swings are so dialed in that if they get the ball an inch too far back or an inch too far forward, the ball can go a long ways offline. And so they're pretty particular about having a perspective to make sure that the ball's in the right place. And so I simply like to have a tee here closer to my feet. This alignment stick that's pointing away from me is pointing right at the ball. And then I like to have another stick out here on the other side of the ball, just far enough away I wouldn't hit it. And it just gives me a sense for exactly how it is that I'm going to get set up every time correctly. From this camera angle, you can see that with my driver ball position, for me, I like it right there. There's some players that like it a little farther back. There's some players that tee it up way high and play it even a little farther forward. The moral to that story is that you've got to find the place that's right for you. And if you're a pretty good player, let's say you're a 12 handicap or less, you should experiment with ball position. If you tend to hit fades, you're playing the ball position here with driver, play it a little farther forward and see what happens. This is how you can experiment on the practice range to see what happens if the ball's too far forward, or what happens if it's too far back. And so we've got to learn, everybody's body's different. Everybody bottoms out in different spots. And basically we want the ball to be at the bottom of our swing with almost every club. You could argue, since driver's teed up, that we want it just past the bottom of the swing when we're on the upswing. But if you're a hooker, you may not want that. You may want to play the ball at the bottom. And so experiment and see what happens. And so that was my driver. This is 7-iron. And for me, with 7-iron, again, I can set up the ball right on the thing. For me, my best ball position with 7-iron that I've learned is just past the middle of my stance, maybe an inch, maybe an inch and a half. And so that's a pretty good spot for me. Other players play almost all their mid-irons right in the middle, so you can experiment and see if that's the best place for you. There's other players that play everything where driver is and they just get a narrower stance. That's not a bad method either. And so you can see that I would hit 7-irons. If I'm hitting them left, I'd play the ball farther back in my stance, more to the right. And by the time I get to wedge, for me, I like, especially my sand wedges, lob wedges, I like it maybe just a ball to the back of my stance where I can create an angle of attack that has a little more forward shaft lean, and it helps me not to hit my wedges to the left. Other instructors will tell you to put it right in the middle. That's not a bad place either. You can experiment there too and just see what happens. If I have to hit a wedge exceptionally high because maybe I have to go over a tree between me and the green, I might play it farther forward and more tilt and launch it higher. So by experimenting with ball position, you can see what's best for you. There's no rule to it. You have to learn what's best for you. And that's really important. But I have to have a perspective. So I have to have this pointed at the ball every time, and I may only move a 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 an inch and experiment, but because just a fraction of an inch can make a big difference, especially you guys that have a lot of club head speed. As you can see, I really like alignment sticks. They're pretty cheap. You can go to your local golf store and you can buy a couple for $25. Or you can go to Home Depot at the mailbox aisle and get some driveway sticks that's got a reflective tape on them for a couple bucks a piece. So most of my students go to Home Depot, and that's what I recommend. This is another one of my favorite drills. This is a great drill to work on chipping and pitching, but it's also a great drill for people that tend to hit chunks and tops or flip or release the club too early. It's very simple. I just put an alignment stick 4 or 5 inches behind the ball, almost off my trail instepped here. If that's a little too close for you and you want to make it farther back or more forward, you can just move it to where it's not by your foot. And so, but what I like here is that I like, if I'm just going to hit a little chip shot, my club's going to work up and down and never hit this stick. What I see happens all the time on my lesson tee is I'll see somebody set up like this and they'll flip their hand and their club's bottoming out 6 or 8 inches behind the ball, and they're wondering why they hit tops and skulls and chunks, and they don't know where the bottom of their swing is. And so with this simple alignment stick, 3 or 4 or 5 inches behind the ball, for me I really get up and down with my chips. I can have this stick just 2 or 3 inches behind the ball and I can make contact without hitting the stick. If you can't do that at first, there's nothing wrong with putting it back there 5 or 6 inches. I even like making full swings. We should be able to strike the ball and not hit that stick every single time, whether it's pitching or chipping or full swings with irons. I really like an alignment stick behind the ball. Another great drill that I've used for years, hopefully I'll be using it for a lot more years to come, is a drill that you can just use with your golf clubs. Doesn't cost you anything. And it's simply making swings where the shaft starts parallel to the ground, and we're just going to keep it parallel to the ground and swing around this. I'm going to let my hips and shoulders follow the club, follows it back, follows it forward, and all I'm doing is feeling how the club swings in a circle around me. One of the things that's really important is to learn how to use your hands and your elbows correctly. And this, I call it a baseball swing for lack of a better term, but this parallel to the ground and keeping it parallel to the ground. You'll see that as I start here and as I hinge my hands and I keep it parallel to the ground, you can see that I create a 90-degree angle with my lead arm and the shaft. This elbow's folded and is close to me, right? Everybody can see that. Then as the club swings forward, you can almost feel it start to release way back here before I would get to where the ball is. And then as I come through, this arm and the shaft create a 90-degree angle. And looky here, what happens to this left elbow, it rotates and folds and it stays close too. So if the club swings on the same angle on my backswing and my downswing, my elbows are going to work that way every time. This elbow's folded, my right one, my trail one. I'm on this angle as I would follow through on the same angle. You can see this arm fold and stay close to me. So you guys at home that are slicers in your videos, you can see a chicken wing like this with this left arm. Well, you know, if I chicken wing, this club can't go over this way. It's going to get stuck right here, and that's what's happening to you in your golf swing. So do these parallel to the ground, parallel the target line. Then I like just blending it down there till I'm down where the ball is. That's a great practice for driver especially. Good way to warm up every practice session or on the first tee. Great way to make a practice swing on the tee box. If you've just sliced 3 drivers in a row, I don't know of a better drill in golf than to feel this motion on the next tee before you hit a shot. So do these baseball swings. It'll really teach you how to use your hands and your elbows correctly, and I promise you'll be a better player. One other drill that I like a lot is also for you guys that are chicken wingers on the follow through with your lead arm getting away from your body and the elbow like this rather than like this is a old but trusty drill. You can take a golf glove, put it under this left arm, and I shouldn't let it fall out. If I chicken wing, out it'll come every time. And by keeping that in there and feeling it on the way through, it'll promote this rotation with the forearms and let your face square up, and it'll help you not slice the ball. A lot of people in this same thing with this, by the way, a lot of people use a towel and they put a towel under both arms. And while that really does give you a feeling of having your arms and your body connected, I don't like hitting balls with that. I think it's too restrictive under the right arm with that towel drill. So if you're going to do something to cure a chicken wing on the follow through, I just like putting a glove under that left arm and feeling it stays in there, okay? And so on that same note, on that same principle, you can take a club and hold it in your lead hand. My left hand is a right-hander, and I can just put my other hand on my tricep back here, and as I swing, I'm not going to let that arm, I'm going to feel the rotation, and I'm not going to let it, I'm going to keep that in there against me, and I'm going to feel that stay in there. It's a pretty good way as well to work on a chicken wing. Another drill that I like a lot is especially for slicers. This is a great anti-slice drill and very underrated one. I like people to hold if they're right-handed, to hold the club with their right hand, and with their left arm, I like to hold it straight out in front of me. And I like to make one-arm swings where I turn back with my shoulder here, but then as I swing through, I swing under this arm and I don't let it go this way. All you slicers, what happens, you're here on the top of your backswing and your first move is like this with your shoulders and the arm. And once you're in this position, you're doomed to end up with an open club face and slice it. So it's a very good drill for feeling your shoulders stay back for a very long time before they start going forward. So then what I like to do is I like them to have them hit a ball, and I like them to set up and they're going to hit a ball, but I want you to pretend you have two left arms. One of them's holding on to the club, but the imaginary one's out here. And I want you to turn going back and swing under that arm on the way through. And I've had great success with people that are terrible slicers, that by doing that drill on a regular basis, they can really feel how to deliver the club squarely at impact. Another drill I recommend highly, especially for you guys that are pretty good players, 7, 8, 9, 10 handicappers, and you're maybe wanting to learn to be able to hit a draw when you need to and a fade when you need to, or maybe to correct if you're over fading the ball and you don't want to fade it as much, or you're over hooking it and you don't want to hook it as much. A really good drill to practice, I like to use alignment sticks. My target line would be this stick out here, and especially if I'm a slicer or hitting fades, I can exaggerate my stance and I can get aimed to the right or closed. Most people would call this a closed stance. I need to make sure my takeaway is still on my target line and not on my feet line, but this will promote a shot that curves right to left for a right-handed player. And so if you're a slicer or you're over fading it and you want to learn I think the best way to learn to fix a slice is to learn how to hit a hook. And so I've exaggerated this greatly. I've shown you a video where I'm actually facing away and I'm swinging up this way and hitting it down this target line. If you're a really bad slicer, that'll teach you how to hit a hook eventually. And so I like that. But for this drill, I don't like to exaggerate it quite that much. You have to understand why this promotes a hook, though. It promotes a hook because the more my stance gets aimed to the right, on the way through, the less I can turn my hips to the left, and I can only go this far with my shoulders. And when these hips stop, then I have leverage to be able to flip my arms. And so the more I get this way and the less I can turn my hips, the more down here at the bottom will cause my arms to turn over. Then the opposite's true for if I want to hit a fade on purpose or a slice on purpose. If I aim to the left for a right-hander and I open my stance, well, see, now my hips can turn a long ways and my shoulders can go a long ways. And because they're turning, I don't have any leverage to flip the club over, and so I drag it behind me, and that leaves the face pointed to the right for me as a right-hander, and that'll promote the ball going right. But that's what's wrong with all you guys that are slicers, is that your shoulders are too open too early on the way down, and it's causing you to end up at impact with the face pointed to the right for a right-hander. So you'll see as I aim to the left here, I have to make sure my takeaway is on this target line, not on my feet line. But if I set up that way, it'll end up promoting a shot that goes low and to the left. And for me, who has no trouble hitting the ball right to left, that's my normal ball flight, I can really hit big hooks this way. So if I get in trouble behind a tree and I need to hit a hook, I'm really good at it. If I have to get behind a tree and hit a slice, I'm not as good, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. But as I set up with this again, I'm going to go back this way, and I'm going to swing, and that ball is going to hook a good 20 or 30 yards to the left. If that's easy for you to do, all you have to simply do is not close your stance as much. So now I'm just closed a little bit compared to that other. I'm still going to swing on my target line on the way through, and that'll still promote a draw, and I'll hit it a lot higher up in the air from that position too. And then eventually, if I can start hitting draws from that little bit of closed position, I can square up and it should go pretty straight. The opposite's true if I want to hit a fade. And I recommend really good players doing this drill both ways, where you practice from an open stance and a closed stance and work your way to the middle on both of them. So you can see I'm really wide to the left with everything. I'm still going to take it away on my target line though, not my feet line, and it should really promote a shot that's going to curve left or right. And it'll go higher in the air because it'll add loft to the club. So a hook will go low and a fade or a slice will go high. And the same thing, you know, if that's over slicing, especially with a less lofted club, that would over slice a lot. But I'll do one more here and you'll see that it'll hit pretty good high fades, huh, Patrick? And then all I've got to do is not open up as much. I'm still going to take it back on my target line. And you'll see that'll still hit a fade, but probably 5 or 8 yards, not as much. And I can just keep coming around until I'm square. So guys that have never hit a fade or a slice in their life, this is pretty good practice to learn how to do it with your stance and your club path. For those of you that have never hit a hook in your life, it's a pretty good drill to do it with a closed stance. Always remember your takeaway has to start down the target line and you'll be just fine. Okay, another great drill. Probably since TrackMan's come along, one of the big buzzwords in golf is how to hit down on your irons, how to create angle of attack and all that. It is as simple as this golf tee. Doesn't cost you much. You probably got so many in your bag weighs too much. All you need is a golf tee. I like to do it with a 7-iron, but you can do it with any one of your mid to short irons, 7, 8, 9, pitch and wedge, and into your sand wedges. This is a great drill. And all I simply like to do is determine how much angle of attack you're trying to achieve, especially if you're a good player and you understand angle of attack. For most players, really good players, this is a 7-iron. Somewhere between 2 to 4 degrees down would be like a perfect angle of attack with a 7-iron. So I can take this tee and I can put it 3 inches in front of the ball, and that's where I'm hoping to bottom out, is 3 inches in front of the ball. That would give me a -3 angle of attack, and I can see if I'm doing it very easily. So I'm simply going to set up to the ball and take a golf swing, and I'm trying to hit the ball, but I'm also trying to hit the tee in front of the ball. If I had a poor angle of attack, I would be on the upswing and I would swing over this tee on the ground. So a very simple, productive drill is to put a tee out here in front of the ball and clip it. So all I'm going to do is get set up here with 7-iron, and I'm going to swing, and I knock that tee 10 yards out on the range, and I've taken a divot in front of the ball because of that, and it's the simplest way to do it. With my wedges, sand wedge, lob wedge, gap wedge, for me, I like to have 8 to 10 degrees angle of attack minus, and so I'll put the tee 7, 8, 9, 10 inches out in front of the ball, and I'll learn to hit the ball in the tee. If you're trying to compress your irons and to hit down on them more, have a negative angle of attack, that tee drill will really help. Okay, I've shown you how to have a negative angle of attack. If your golf instructors told you you need to swing more up on the ball at impact with driver, this is the simplest drill to learn to do that. All it is the box from a sleeve of golf balls, and I place it a club head or so in front of the ball on a tee, and all I'm simply going to try to do is at impact, I'm going to hit the ball and I'm going to swing over that box and not hit it. That would probably give you an angle of attack of somewhere between +4 and +6. And if that's what you're trying to achieve, this is a great way to do it. If you didn't want to have that much of an upswing with driver, you could place this box another 3 or 4 inches out here in front of the ball, where maybe you're 2 club head lengths away, and still swing over it. But for you guys that are much too steep with driver and your TrackMan numbers are -10 or -5 angle of attack, you're drilling this box after you hit the ball. And so a really simple, inexpensive drill is to hit. You can do this in the backyard without a ball. You can put a tee in the ground and literally just swing and miss the box on the follow through. And for you guys with slower club head speeds, by hitting up on the ball, it can dramatically improve your distance. And so TrackMan shows on their numbers that the difference between a +5 angle of attack and a -5 angle of attack, so that's 10 degrees difference, with the same swing speed, is usually about 30 yards in total distance, because the descending blow puts a lot more backspin on the ball, and so it doesn't roll very far after it hits, and so this upswing produces much less spin, and therefore you get both carry and roll, and it dramatically can improve your distance. The only caveat I'll say to that is for you guys that have high club head speeds, 105, 110 miles an hour and more, the average angle of attack last year per TrackMan was -2. And so the best players in the world, most of them are actually hitting down on the ball with driver. That produces a fade, but they hit it so far that they don't mind sacrificing a little distance for a ball that fades a little bit and ends up in the fairway more often. But for you guys with not that much club head speed, it is a benefit to hit up on it. And this simple little drill with a box can teach you how to do that. When I have players that have an extreme club path mistake, could be outside in, could be inside out, this drill works in both cases. I use TrackMan a lot. I often see people with a -13 club path that are right-handed. That means their club's swinging across in this direction on the way down to the left too much. And I can usually cut their path mistake in half in just 1 or 2 swings with this simple towel drill. So all I do, if they swing from out to in too much, I put one towel just outside the ball, kind of where my big box would have been in another drill, and it's staggered behind the ball. And then I stagger one to the left of the ball that's on the inside. And so all I tell them is I get aimed correctly. I might put another alignment stick between my feet and the ball just to make sure they're lined up correctly, because I could aim like this and it's pretty easy to go through the towels, or I could aim like this and it's impossible to miss the towels. So I want them to be square with their stance, and if they've traditionally come across this way, all I simply want them to do is to miss the towels and hit the ball. And I usually cut a path mistake in half in 1 or 2 swings. So it's pretty dramatic. The same thing happens. I had a high school kid over the weekend that's a really good player, but he's plus 13 on his club path on TrackMan. So he takes this club back, a pretty good backswing, but then it really flattens down there on the way down and it swings a mile to the right. He's got a closed face, mile to the right, hits big rope hooks. He can hit 9-iron 180 yards, but he can't hit a 4-iron 100 yards in the air because it never gets airborne. And so the same's true with him. All I've got to do is reverse these towels. I can put a towel on the other side of the ball staggered out in front, and I can take this towel and put it in the back. And so again, I make sure they're square with their stance and aimed at their target, and I say we're going to swing more this way and we're going to hit the ball and miss the towels. And I cut his path in half, actually more. He was down to +2, +3 after about a half hour hitting balls like this. The other thing you can add, if you want to be a pretty neutral player, is you can put another towel back here behind it. You can hit one shot this way, then put a ball up here, hit one shot that way, and it's a good way to zero out your path pretty quickly as well. So I like that as a drill. This towel drill is wonderful. It's very simple, very easy, and I find it helps almost every player that I work with. With the towels in this configuration, it would promote a fade, okay? And so for players, I had a really good one handicapper that I worked with last week that's a member out here and a great player. Club path of +7, +8 with everything with TrackMan. So he plays a draw or a hook, but he mistakes a big hook occasionally. And told me he couldn't remember how many years it's been since he was able to hit a fade. And I told him, well, shoot, it's pretty easy to hit a fade. All you've got to do is set the towels in this configuration. In another video with parallax error, we've talked about putting an alignment stick out here in front that's on the target line. And I said, we just have these towels here, and I just want you to start this ball to the left of this stick. And man, he hit the prettiest little 5-yard fades you ever seen. He thought he was slicing it. He'd never seen a ball curve in that direction. So these towels are great for any handicap level, depending on what you're trying to correct or what you're trying to improve. So for me, with this configuration set up, I can imagine my ball starting left of the white flag out there, and I'm just going to swing between those towels, and I ought to be able to hit a big fade from that configuration every time. Gosh, on our second hole here at Old Hickory, that'd be perfect. And so the same thing's true if I stagger them this way. I can pretend my ball's going to start to the right. From a good setup, I'm going to swing between the towels that direction, and I ought to hit a really nice baby draw most of the time there. One of the age-old mistakes that I see with high handicap players and beginners is they make golf swings and they're always swinging on their back foot and falling back like this, okay? I see it chipping. They're set up to chip and they're like this at impact on the way through. So it's a pretty common mistake. So one of the drills that I like a lot for players that tend to do that. For a right-handed player, I like them to feel that their weight's just on their front leg, their left leg alone. And I like them to hit chip shots like this. And so all I like to have done is just to get set up, and then I'm going to stand on this leg and balance on this. And for most people, they can't keep their balance very good, but I'll just have them put their toe on the ground like this just so they have balance. And I just want them to hit little chip shots where they can feel that their weight just stays on that forward leg every time, and they learn to catch their balance on their leg. I think that's, you know, Manuel de la Torre for years tried to tell people that your leg's job in the swing is to catch balance, and that's it. You should catch your balance on your right leg on your backswing, and you should catch your balance on your front leg on your forward swing. And so I think for a lot of people, the reason why they're on their back leg all the time is they're not very good on their left leg maintaining any balance, and they're afraid of falling down or losing balance, and then they lean back because that's easier, and it's their body's defense mechanism to keep from falling down. And so, but you've got to learn to keep that balance. And so I like standing on that left leg and hitting shots. You can do it with any of your irons. For most people, I prefer, you know, to do it with little wedges and just hit little short shots. You can do it with 7 or 8 iron and hit 100-yard shots with those too. It's a pretty good way to do it. The best player in the world right now is Scotty Scheffler, and the way he chips is he just keeps all his weight on his front leg, and he just keeps the angle in his trail hand, his right hand, and he just keeps his weight left, and he just swings the arm like that. And so I like, for advanced players, or any player for that matter, to practice chipping like that. Stand on this left leg, maybe choke down to where the club's a little lighter, get an angle in the back of your trail hand, and just hit little pitch shots where we maintain that angle, and we keep that weight left, and it's a really good way to practice. And so I like weight on the front foot, one-handed. All I'm trying to do is swing this arm like this and maintain my wrist angle, and I should hit nice little chip shots. And you can see you'll miss-hit some, I will too. But boy, you ought to get pretty good at it after a while, hitting good little crisp chips. So if you want to learn to improve your chipping, that's a great drill. If you want to improve learning to catch your balance on your front leg, I recommend practicing like that. Another must-do drill that'll help you work on your correct path, also correct alignment, also correct club face if you understand the positions of club face during this drill. One of my favorites, I like, you can do it in the backyard while the barbecue grill's getting hot, okay? You can do it in your man cave while your wife's upstairs in bed and you're not making big enough swings to wake her up. And you can do it with the orange whip as well, and I'll show you that at the end. It's really great with the orange whip, so if you don't have an orange whip, you should buy one, and Patrick will give you the link. I like to get set up parallel to a target line, and I like to have an alignment stick that's on my toe line or through the balls of my feet. Then I like to have another stick that is on my heel line over here, and it's parallel to my target line, okay? So the rule of swing plane in the golf swing is that whenever the shaft of the club is parallel to the ground, it should be parallel to the target line. And I can see that position. Because I have a spine tilt at address, my club face is square at this position if the face of the club matches the angle of my spine. So in the old days we were taught to be toe up, but that's actually an open club face position. That'd be square. And I would be in this position again on the way down as I approach the ball. So I'm ideally in this position twice. I'm in this position on the way back, and then I'm on this position on the way down. My hands will probably be farther away from me on the way back and closer to my body on the way down, but the shaft should be in the same position. Then as I swing forward from there, I should also be parallel to the ground, but I should be on my heel line on the finish, not on the toe line. And if my club face is square, that face is still matching my spine tilt, okay? And so that's a really good way to fundamentally practice your takeaway, practice your follow through in that same position. I like it a lot. One of the drills I like then to add to that is I like to start in this position, swing back to the ball, and try to swing through that position on the follow through. Gosh, one of my favorite drills for sure. And with this weighted orange whip, it's the best drill ever with the orange whip. I'm not positive, but I think I invented it, I'll brag. But it's the best drill. I've never seen anybody do it before I decided to do this drill. But I like to start over here, let it swing backwards, and try to finish over there again. I'm over here, I'm over there. The reason it's on your heel line on the finish is because as I come forward, my hips are going to turn a lot more on my follow through than my backswing. My backswing, I only turn about 45, so when I'm parallel to the ground, it's just right here. But with motion, my hips are going to turn a lot more on the follow through, and that's why this club needs to be over here on my finish. So if I start here, swing back, swing forward, that's a great feeling. And for all you slicers out there, this is another great drill to learn how to swing correctly. Frankly, for all you hookers out there, the more you swing over here left and keep that face with your spine angle, the more you're going to cure a hook as well.